The Pharaohs of Egyptians. Welcome to God's TV. Today we will be sharing the Pharaohs of Egyptians. Teti I, also known as Otos, was a pharaoh of the 6th dynasty of ancient Egypt. He reigned from around 2323 BCE to 2291 BCE. Although there is limited historical information available about Teti I, some significant events and aspects of his reign can be pieced together from archaeological discoveries and later historical accounts. Teti I came from a noble family and was possibly the son of Pharaoh Yunus, the last ruler of the 5th dynasty. Upon ascending to the throne, Teti I faced several challenges, including political and religious unrest, as well as threats from regional powers. However, he managed to consolidate his rule and maintain stability within the kingdom. One notable aspect of Teti I's reign was his close association with the cult of the god Ptah, particularly the Memphite theology centered around Ptah, Sekhmet, and Nefertum. Teti I promoted this cult and its associated rituals, likely in an effort to secure divine protection and enhance his own legitimacy as a ruler. Teti I is also remembered for his pyramid complex, which is located at Saqqara near modern-day Cairo. His pyramid, known as the Pyramid of Teti, was one of the largest of its time and included various mortuary structures and burial chambers. The pyramid texts, a collection of religious spells and rituals intended to guide the pharaoh's journey into the afterlife, were inscribed on the walls of Teti I's pyramid chambers. These texts provide valuable insights into the religious beliefs and practices of the time. Despite Teti I's accomplishments, his reign was not entirely without troubles. Towards the end of his rule, Egypt experienced economic difficulties and internal strife. Discontent grew among the nobles, and Teti I was eventually assassinated. The exact circumstances surrounding his death are unclear, but some sources suggest that it was a result of a conspiracy within his court. Following his death, Teti I was succeeded by his son, Userkar, who ruled for a brief period before being succeeded by Teti I's other son, Pepi I. The 6th dynasty continued for several generations after Teti I, but it gradually declined in power and stability, marking the end of the Old Kingdom period of Egypt. Although information about Teti I is relatively sparse, his reign represents an important phase in the history of ancient Egypt. His association with the Memphite theology and his pyramid complex at Saqqara contribute to our understanding of the religious and architectural developments during the Old Kingdom. Teti I was an ancient Egyptian pharaoh who ruled during the Old Kingdom period, specifically the 6th dynasty. He was the son of Pharaoh Yunus and his wife Nebet, and he ascended to the throne after his brother, Pharaoh Teti Ankhau, died without an heir. Teti I's reign is believed to have begun around 2323 BC, and he ruled for approximately 12 years. During his reign, he continued the building projects and temple restorations initiated by his predecessors, and he also commissioned the construction of his own pyramid complex at Saqqara. Teti I's pyramid is one of the best preserved of all the Old Kingdom pyramids, and it is notable for the beautiful reliefs that decorate its walls. These reliefs include scenes of the king's journey through the afterlife, as well as images of his family and courtiers. One of the most interesting aspects of Teti I's reign is the evidence we have of a plot against him. A group of high-ranking officials, including the vizier, attempted to overthrow the king and install one of their own as pharaoh. However, the plot was foiled, and the conspirators were punished. Teti I was succeeded by his son, Userkar, although the circumstances surrounding Userkar's ascension to the throne are unclear. It is possible that Userkar was actually Teti I's younger brother, or that he was a son from a different wife. Overall, Teti I's reign was relatively stable and prosperous, although there were some signs of unrest towards the end of his rule. He is remembered as a wise and just king, and his pyramid complex stands as a testament to the impressive architectural achievements of the Old Kingdom. Pepi I, also known as Pepi or Pharaohs I, was an ancient Egyptian pharaoh who reigned during the 6th dynasty of the Old Kingdom period. He ruled Egypt for an estimated 48 years, from around 2332 to 2283 BCE, although the exact dates are subject to debate. Pepi I was the son of Teti, the founder of the 6th dynasty, and his wife Queen Iput. He ascended to the throne at a young age, possibly in his early teens, following the death of his father. As pharaoh, Pepi continued his father's policies and aimed to maintain stability and prosperity in Egypt. During his long reign, Pepi undertook numerous military campaigns, primarily in Nubia, present-day Sudan, and Libya, to secure Egypt's borders and expand its influence. He established trade relationships with neighboring regions, fostering economic growth within Egypt. Additionally, Pepi focused on internal affairs, initiating construction projects, including temples and pyramids. One of the notable aspects of Pepi's reign was his close association with a high-ranking official, Shkar-Isesi, who served as the vizier and eventually became pharaoh after Pepi's death. Shkar-Isesi was a powerful figure in the royal court and played a significant role in the administration of the kingdom. Pepi's reign is also characterized by the flourishing of the arts and literature. Several works of literature, such as the famous tale of King Cheops' court, were composed during his time. These texts provide insights into the daily life, traditions, and beliefs of the ancient Egyptians. The latter years of Pepi's reign were marked by growing challenges, including a decline in central authority, increasing power struggles among the nobles. This instability would have a significant impact on the following dynasties, leading to the eventual collapse of the Old Kingdom. After Pepi's death, he was buried in a pyramid complex in Saqqara, known as the Pyramid of Pepi. His successors continued to build pyramids in the area, though the splendor and grandeur of these structures began to decline. Overall, Pepi's reign represents a period of relative prosperity and stability during the Old Kingdom, marked by military successes, cultural achievements, and the expansion of Egyptian influence. His legacy, along with the achievements of his predecessors and successors, played a crucial role in shaping the history and culture of ancient Egypt. Pepi, also known as Pepi Meraire, was an ancient Egyptian pharaoh of the 6th dynasty who ruled from around 2332 to 2287 BCE. He was the third king of the dynasty and the son of his predecessor, Teti. Pepi came to the throne as a young child, and his mother, Queen Ankhesenpepi II, acted as his regent until he reached adulthood. Once he assumed full power, Pepi continued his father's policy of strengthening the central government and expanding Egypt's influence in the region. During his reign, Pepi initiated military campaigns against the Nubians to the south and the Libyans to the west. He also established trade relations with the Levant and sent expeditions to the Sinai Peninsula to mine copper and turquoise. Pepi was also a patron of the arts and commissioned numerous monumental buildings, including temples, pyramids, and sun temples. He built a pyramid complex for himself at Saqqara, which included a temple dedicated to his cult and a mortuary temple where offerings were made to his spirit after his death. Pepi was succeeded by his son, Merener I, who ruled for a short time before his own death. After Merener's death, the dynasty fell into a period of decline and instability, with several short-lived and weak rulers. Pepi's reign marked the zenith of the Old Kingdom period of ancient Egypt, which was characterized by political stability, prosperity, and cultural achievement. Despite the challenges faced by his successors, Pepi's legacy endured, and his reign remains a significant period in the history of ancient Egypt. Nemtiemspi was a pharaoh of ancient Egypt who ruled during the 19th dynasty, in the period known as the New Kingdom, circa 1292 to circa 1189 BCE. He is also known by the names Amini Antefenmumtiemspi. Nemtiemspi's exact reign dates are uncertain, but it is generally believed that he ruled for about 8 years, from around 1560 to 1552 BCE. He succeeded his father, Pharaoh Amenhotep I, and was succeeded by his son, Pharaoh Amenemhat II. During his reign, Nemtiemspi continued the policies of his father and grandfather in expanding Egypt's influence and power. He is known to have conducted military campaigns in Nubia and Libya, and to have built several monuments and temples throughout Egypt. One of Nemtiemspi's most notable achievements was the construction of his tomb in the Valley of the Kings, which is known as KV39. The tomb is relatively small compared to some of the other tombs in the valley, but it is notable for its well-preserved decorations and scenes, which provide valuable insights into the religious beliefs and practices of the time. Nemtiem's reign was generally peaceful, with few major conflicts or upheavals recorded. He is remembered as a competent and respected pharaoh, although he is not as well known as some of his predecessors and successors. After his death, Nemtiem's was buried in his tomb in the Valley of the Kings, along with many of his possessions and treasures. His legacy continued through his son and successor, Amenemhat II, who ruled for about 35 years and continued to expand Egypt's power and influence. Pepi II, also known as Neferkar Pepi II, was the last pharaoh of the 6th dynasty of Egypt's Old Kingdom. He reigned for an exceptionally long period, possibly around 94 years, making him one of the longest reigning monarchs in history. However, due to limited historical records and conflicting information, some aspects of Pepi II's reign remain uncertain. Pepi II inherited the throne at a young age, likely around 6 years old, following the death of his father, Pepi I. Since he was too young to rule independently, his mother, Queen Ankhesenpepi II, acted as his regent. Eventually, Pepi II assumed full control of the kingdom, possibly during his teenage years. During the early part of his reign, Egypt enjoyed relative stability and prosperity. Trade networks were maintained, and the construction of monumental structures continued. However, as Pepi II grew older and his reign extended, the centralized authority of the pharaoh weakened, and regional governors gained more autonomy and power. This decentralization of power, combined with environmental factors such as a decline in Nile flooding and subsequent crop failures, led to increased social and economic challenges for the kingdom. Pepi II's reign also saw the waning influence of the pharaoh's court and the rise of powerful nobles. These nobles, known as nomarchs, governed specific regions of Egypt and controlled vast estates. Their increasing independence further contributed to the fragmentation of central authority. The latter part of Pepi II's reign was marked by political instability and a decline in the Old Kingdom's power. Historical records suggest that civil unrest and internal conflicts plagued the country. This period also witnessed the emergence of a nomarch named Heracleopolis, who challenged the authority of the pharaoh. It is believed that Pepi II's long reign may have contributed to the instability, as the lack of a clear successor and the prolonged rule of an aging ruler weakened the overall governance of Egypt. Following Pepi II's death, Egypt fell into a period of turmoil known as the First Intermediate Period. The central authority collapsed entirely, and the country was divided into rival regional states. This chaotic era marked the end of the Old Kingdom and set the stage for the subsequent Middle Kingdom. While Pepi II's reign is notable for its longevity, it is also a period of decline and transition in Egyptian history. Despite the challenges faced during his rule, Pepi II's long reign remains an intriguing aspect of ancient Egypt's history, offering insights into the complexities and dynamics of power during the later stages of the Old Kingdom. Pepi II, also known as Neferkar, was the 6th king of the 6th dynasty of Egypt, ruling from around 2278 to 2184 BC. He was the son of his predecessor, Merenptah II, and ascended to the throne at a very young age, possibly only 6 years old. Pepi II's reign was one of the longest in Egyptian history, lasting for over 90 years, although this figure is disputed among scholars. During his long reign, he maintained Egypt's dominance in the region, continuing the building and expansion of temples and monuments throughout the country. Pepi II is also known for his relationship with his mother, Queen Ankhesenpepi II, who wielded significant power and influence during his reign. The queen was involved in many of the king's decisions and was responsible for appointing officials to high positions in the government. One of the most notable events of Pepi II's reign was the widespread famine that occurred towards the end of his long reign. This event is recorded in a number of inscriptions and texts from the time, including the famous famine stela, which describes the king's efforts to alleviate the suffering of his people by ordering the construction of granaries and the distribution of food. Despite his long reign and numerous accomplishments, Pepi II's rule was marked by increasing decentralization of power and growing unrest in the provinces. This eventually led to the collapse of the Old Kingdom and the onset of the first intermediate period in Egyptian history. Pepi II's death and the events leading up to it are shrouded in mystery, with conflicting accounts from different sources. Some suggest that he was overthrown by his own officials, while others propose that he died peacefully in his old age. Today, Pepi II is remembered as one of the most important and influential kings of the Old Kingdom period, leaving behind a legacy of monumental architecture, religious innovations, and a complex political system that would shape the course of Egyptian history for centuries to come. Pepi II, also known as Neferkar Pepi II, was the last pharaoh of the 6th dynasty of ancient Egypt. He ruled during the Old Kingdom period and reigned for an exceptionally long period, possibly over 90 years, making him one of the longest reigning monarchs in history. However, due to the limited historical records available, some aspects of his reign remain unclear and subject to interpretation. Pepi II was the son of Pharaoh Pepi I and Queen Ankhesenpepi I. He ascended to the throne as a young boy, following the death of his father. Due to his young age, his mother likely acted as his regent during the early years of his reign. During the early part of his rule, Egypt was prosperous and politically stable. Pepi II continued the building projects initiated by his predecessors, including the construction of pyramids and temples. The king's name, Neferkar, translates to beautiful as the Ka of Ra, highlighting his connection to the sun god Ra. Pepi II's reign was characterized by extensive trade networks with neighboring regions, particularly Nubia and the eastern Mediterranean. Egyptian expeditions were sent to these areas to establish diplomatic relations and acquire valuable resources. Trade flourished, and Egypt enjoyed considerable wealth during this period. However, as Pepi II grew older, the centralized power of the pharaoh weakened, and local governors gained more autonomy. The influence of the nobility increased, and the administration of the country became more fragmented. This decentralization of power had a long-lasting impact on the stability of the Old Kingdom. The latter part of Pepi II's reign is marked by references to a decline in the economy and increased unrest within the kingdom. Some historical records suggest that famine and drought plagued the land, leading to social upheaval. The weakened central authority and the lack of effective control by the pharaoh over regional governors likely contributed to these challenges. Pepi II's death marked the end of the 6th dynasty and the Old Kingdom period. Following his demise, Egypt entered a period of political instability known as the First Intermediate Period. The pharaohs of the subsequent 7th and 8th dynasties were not able to maintain control over the kingdom, leading to further fragmentation and a decline in centralized authority. Mentuhotep II, also known as Nebhepiter Mentuhotep II, was an ancient Egyptian pharaoh who reigned during the 11th dynasty, specifically from around 2061 to 2010 BC. He is considered one of the most important pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom period, as he played a pivotal role in reunifying Egypt after a period of division and instability known as the First Intermediate Period. Mentuhotep II was born into a noble family and inherited the throne from his father, Intef III. When he ascended to power, Egypt was divided into two rival kingdoms, the northern part ruled by the Heracleopolitan kings and the southern part governed by the Theban rulers. Mentuhotep II's primary goal was to reunite the country and restore centralized rule. His reign began with military campaigns to regain control over Upper Egypt, which was under Theban rule. He managed to defeat his rivals and establish Thebes as the new capital of a reunited Egypt. Mentuhotep II took the Horus name Nebhepiter, which means Re is the Lord of Strength, to emphasize his connection to the sun god and his divine right to rule. Once in power, Mentuhotep II initiated a series of economic and religious reforms to strengthen his kingdom. He revitalized trade networks and reopened mines that had been closed during the First Intermediate Period. This economic prosperity allowed him to embark on ambitious building projects, such as the construction and expansion of temples and monuments. One of the most significant achievements of Mentuhotep II was the construction of his mortuary complex, known as the Deir el-Bahari Temple, located on the west bank of the Nile near Thebes. The temple was dedicated to the god Amun and served as Mentuhotep II's funerary monument. It was a masterpiece of architecture, featuring terraced levels and colonnades, and it set the precedent for later mortuary temples built during the New Kingdom. Mentuhotep II ruled for approximately 51 years, making him one of the longest reigning pharaohs in Egyptian history. His reign marked the end of the First Intermediate Period and the beginning of the Middle Kingdom, a period known for its stability, artistic achievements, and centralization of power. After his death, Mentuhotep II was buried in his mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari. His successors continued his policies, and the 11th dynasty lasted for several generations before eventually giving way to the 12th dynasty. The reign of Mentuhotep II had a lasting impact on Egyptian history. He is remembered as a pharaoh who restored unity to the country, revived the economy, and laid the foundations for the prosperous and culturally rich era of the Middle Kingdom. His accomplishments as a ruler and his contributions to art and architecture make him a significant figure in ancient Egyptian history. Mentuhotep II, also known as Nebhepiter Mentuhotep II, was the seventh pharaoh of the 11th dynasty of Egypt. He ruled from around 2061 BC to 2010 BC, during the Middle Kingdom period. Mentuhotep II's rise to power was a result of the fragmented state of Egypt at the time. The country was divided into two kingdoms, Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, with several rulers vying for control. Mentuhotep II was the governor of Thebes, located in Upper Egypt, and he was able to consolidate his power in the region by defeating his rivals. Once Mentuhotep II had secured his position in Thebes, he began a campaign to reunite Egypt. He waged a series of successful military campaigns, conquering territories in Nubia and the Eastern Desert. He also established diplomatic relations with neighboring regions, such as the land of Punt. Mentuhotep II is perhaps best known for his construction projects, particularly the mortuary complex at Deir el-Bahari. This complex included a temple and several tombs, including Mentuhotep II's own tomb, which is considered one of the most impressive of the period. Mentuhotep II's reign is also notable for its cultural achievements. He patronized the arts and literature, commissioning many works that celebrated his reign and the reunification of Egypt. He also encouraged the revival of traditional Egyptian religious practices, which had been suppressed during the preceding period of turmoil. Mentuhotep II was succeeded by his son, Mentuhotep III, who continued his father's policies and oversaw a period of stability and prosperity in Egypt. The legacy of Mentuhotep II's reign is significant, as he is credited with laying the foundation for the cultural, economic, and political resurgence of Egypt during the Middle Kingdom period. Mentuhotep III, also known as Ned-Ir Mentuhotep III, was an ancient Egyptian pharaoh who ruled during the 11th dynasty of the Middle Kingdom. He reigned from approximately 2006 to 1998 BC, although some sources suggest a longer reign lasting until around 1992 BC. Mentuhotep III is considered one of the most significant pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom period. Mentuhotep III was the son of his predecessor, Mentuhotep II, and his queen, Tem. He ascended to the throne at a young age, possibly as a child, due to the early death of his father. As pharaoh, he initially shared power with his mother, who acted as his regent until he reached adulthood. During Mentuhotep III's reign, Egypt experienced a period of stability and prosperity. He focused on restoring centralized control over the country, which had been fragmented during the First Intermediate Period. Mentuhotep III's reign marked the reunification of Upper and Lower Egypt, bringing an end to the political disarray that had plagued the region for centuries. One of the notable achievements of Mentuhotep III was the construction of his mortuary complex, located at Deir el-Bahari near Thebes in Upper Egypt. The complex consisted of a temple dedicated to the god Montu, from whom the pharaoh derived his name, as well as his mortuary temple and tomb. The temple at Deir el-Bahari was one of the most elaborate structures of its time and served as a precursor to the magnificent funerary temples built by later pharaohs. Mentuhotep III's reign was characterized by extensive trade with neighboring regions, including Nubia and the Levant. This trade brought wealth and exotic goods to Egypt, further enhancing the pharaoh's power and prestige. It is also believed that Mentuhotep III dispatched military expeditions to the Sinai Peninsula to secure the region's valuable copper and turquoise mines. Despite his successful reign, Mentuhotep III faced challenges towards the end of his rule. Towards the later years of his reign, there is evidence of a decline in the central authority, with regional governors gaining increased autonomy. Additionally, a significant famine occurred during his reign, as recorded in the famous Admonitions of Power, a literary text that describes social unrest and natural disasters. Mentuhotep III was succeeded by his son, Mentuhotep IV, who reigned for a relatively short period before the 11th dynasty came to an end. Following the collapse of the 11th dynasty, a new era began with the rise of the 12th dynasty and the reign of Amenemhat I. Mentuhotep III's reign was an important transitional period in ancient Egyptian history, marking the beginning of the Middle Kingdom and the restoration of stability after the turbulent First Intermediate period. His efforts to reunify Egypt and restore centralized control set the stage for the subsequent pharaohs who would establish the powerful 12th dynasty. Mentuhotep III was a pharaoh of the 11th dynasty of Egypt who ruled from around 2001 to 1992 BC. During the Middle Kingdom period, he is often considered to be one of the greatest pharaohs of the Middle Kingdom due to his military campaigns, building projects, and artistic patronage. Mentuhotep III was the son of his predecessor, Mentuhotep II, and ascended to the throne at a young age. His reign was marked by a period of stability and prosperity, which allowed him to focus on building projects and expanding Egypt's territory. One of Mentuhotep III's most notable achievements was the construction of the Temple of Montu in Thebes, which was dedicated to the worship of the god Montu. He also commissioned several other building projects throughout Egypt, including the construction of a temple in Abydos and the renovation of several other temples. Mentuhotep III is also known for his military campaigns, which expanded Egypt's influence and territory. He led expeditions into Nubia, the Eastern Desert, and the Sinai Peninsula, and is believed to have brought the turquoise mines in Sinai under Egyptian control. He also established trade relations with the land of Punt, which was located in what is now Somalia. In addition to his military and building projects, Mentuhotep III was also a patron of the arts. He commissioned several works of art, including statues, reliefs, and a large number of inscriptions. Many of these works depicted him in the traditional regal posture, with his arms crossed over his chest and his hands holding the royal insignia. Mentuhotep III died after a long reign of around 9 to 10 years, and was succeeded by his son, Mentuhotep IV. Despite his relatively short reign, Mentuhotep III is remembered as one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs, whose achievements helped to establish the stability and prosperity of the Middle Kingdom. Thank you very much for watching and listening. Please, if you do like this video, please do subscribe, like, share and press the bell button so that anytime there is a new video, you will be the first to see and watch. Thank you.